In this video, let's go over some top tips to secure your WordPress site. Now, 70% of WordPress blogs are left vulnerable to hacker attacks. That's actually true based on a number of studies. We've got links to those in the actual blog post for this video, which you'll see a link to that if you happen to be watching this on YouTube. You can see a link for that in the discussion there. What we really want to do in this video is go over some tried and tested ways to help you protect your site so that you're not one of those 70%. First, it's not just about WordPress. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your own home base. Okay, so the platform, the software, the hardware, all that sort of stuff that you're actually running. So making sure you update your browsers, making sure that you have the latest antivirus software running on your PCs. All of that stuff's got to be in place, because if it's not, that's where a lot of hackers can get things like passwords to get into your WordPress site. So you want to make sure that you're sort of starting from a very good base of security there. Next up, you want to make sure that you're running a site plugin. This is a free one. It's actually called Exploit Scanner Plugin, and you'll find that on the WordPress plugin repository. And it'll basically scan your WordPress site for any known WordPress exploits. And if they're there, it'll let you know. It doesn't fix anything, but it will give you some suggestions on what you can do. You can also use security plugins, which we're going to get to in a second here. And a lot of security plugins, in fact, the one that we recommend is called iThemes Security. But iThemes Security actually has an exploit scanner that will do it for you. So you can always take a look at that. Of course, you want to make sure you're backing up. If you do not back up, then you're just asking for trouble. The main reason for that is because if you don't even worry about your security for a second, right? So let's say security is not your concern. Something eventually most likely will happen. It could be just something physical, like the server that your website is on breaks down, or somebody accidentally gets into your site who you trusted, who you gave password information to, and they accidentally delete something incredibly important. And if that stuff happens, you don't have a backup, it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible experience. More than likely, what will happen is that you will get hacked, especially if you're not taking care of security precautions. And if you do get hacked, you don't have a backup. Again, horrible position to be in. So your very, 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 very first step after you've taken care of your computer or your platform is making sure that you've got a backup. You got to make sure you got a backup. Now, we recommend a program called Backup Buddy. It is amazing, but there are lots of other ones out there to take a look at it. And you can also do manual backup when you do WordPress. Just make sure that you back up both your files and your database. Plugins like Backup Buddy will automatically back up both. So in our case, we don't have to worry about it because it happens. Backups are routinely run all the time. So worst case scenario, something happens to our site, we just go back to yesterday's copy and kind of just restore it, and then everything goes back to normal. Okay, so let's talk about plugins and themes that you're not using. This is something that everybody's guilty of in the WordPress world, but what will happen is you'll try a plugin, it may not work the best way, so then you sort of deactivate it, you go back, you try another plugin, you deactivate that, you try another plugin, and maybe that one works, so you keep it, and you accidentally, just because you're busy, you forget about the other two that were disabled or deactivated. If they're deactivated, the code is technically still there on your server. And what happens is, if there becomes a security breach where a lot of hackers will just find ways through the code, and you've got that old plugin that's sitting there, the code is still there, which means those vulnerabilities are still there. Even though it's not activated, doesn't matter. The code is still there, and they can still get through into your WordPress site from that code. And we're speaking from experience, or at least I am speaking from experience, because I've done that, where I didn't deactivate a proper theme, or I didn't deactivate a plugin, and I had a hacker come through the plugin that was deactivated, but it still came through the code, and it took down my entire site. So it can absolutely happen. In fact, it probably will happen if you allow it. So all you need to do is just make sure that if you are not using a plugin, if you're not using a theme, to delete them. Get them entirely off your server. Next up, always use themes and plugins from trusted developers. So we always recommend iThemes Security Pro because it is an amazing theme. An amazing plugin, amazing security plugin. It does an awful lot of stuff. Now the pro version is paid, but they have an incredible free version. So you don't have to go the paid version. Start with the free version. We did. We just bought the pro version because of all the other features that comes with it. And they're adding new features all the time. So that's why we purchased it, and it's not that expensive. But iThemes Security is what we started with. We started with the free version, and that works amazingly well. It will still give you an incredible level of protection, a useful level of protection, and it's much better than not having a security plugin. But what we like about it is that it's paid, that they do have money coming in. Because if they didn't have that, then one day they can just get bored or get a new job, and then they stop supporting it. And if they stop supporting it, now I got to go find a whole new plugin, right? So I like Personally, I like finding people who are making a living from their work. So that includes paid themes, themes like Optimize Press. That includes paid plugins like iThemes Security Pro or Backup Buddy. We like those because they're making money from them, which means they're more than likely going to care about customer service. They are more than likely going to stay up on top of all the security things that are going on with WordPress, and they're going to keep updates coming through all the time. So that's why we personally go with, as much as we can, themes and plugins from trusted developers, and most of the time that means paid, because that's just how the market works. Next up, choosing a good host. Now, if you're trying to save a buck, you can still find incredible hosting at places like HostGator or Bluehost, but if you find places cheaper than that, maybe somebody's got a friend who has a server and they just sort of started this tiny little hosting farm and you don't really know that much about them, you probably want to stay away from that. The biggest reason is because places like HostGator and Bluehost have massive amount of resources that can help protect them from security threats. They've got entire departments that are dedicated to this. And one person that's sort of running some hosting because they wanted to get into it, it's just really hard. It's virtually impossible to keep up with all of the different security stuff that's going on. So more than likely, it's much better for you to go with a large, more reputable hosting company. And finally, update. Make sure that you are updating your WordPress site, that you are updating your WordPress themes, and that you are updating your WordPress plugins. Now remember, sometimes updates can cause things to kind of go awry sometimes. So instead of just updating without a backup, you want to make sure you always have a backup. And that way, if you do update, something goes wonky, it's not a problem. You can just go back and restore from your backup. But if you have the updates, you are more than likely protected on recent security threats. For more information, of course, if you have any questions over anything, just go to seriouslysimplemarketing.com. You will see a link to the blog post on this particular video if you happen to be watching it on YouTube. And feel free to subscribe to this channel, by the way. So we have some people that have started to do that, which is great. We love that. And if you have any comments, we'd love to see your comments on the blog. So thanks again for watching this particular video, and we'll see you on the next one.